നമസ്കാരം. ഞാൻ സിന്ധു പുനൂസ്. നമ്മുടെ മലയാളം FM-ന്റെ പുതിയ സെഗ്മെന്റ് കണക്ട് ഇന്നിവിടെ ലോഞ്ച് ചെയ്യുകയാണ്. കണക്ട് KONNECT കേരളവും ന്യൂസിലൻഡിലുള്ള കിവികളുമായി കണക്ട് ചെയ്യുന്ന ഒരു പ്ലാറ്റ്ഫോമാണ്. അതുകൊണ്ട് ഇന്ന് നമുക്ക് അതിഥിയായി കിട്ടിയിരിക്കുന്നത് ഓക്ലൻഡിൻ്റെ ഡെപ്യൂട്ടി മേയറാണ്. നമുക്ക് സ്വാഗതം ചെയ്യാം. Welcome, Auckland Deputy Mayor Desley Simpson to our show.
Namaskaram, and it's a wonderful pleasure to be with you today.
Thank you. It was lovely to hear Namaskaram from you. Desley, you had a successful spell as Oraki Local Board Chair, as well as a great overwhelming endorsement from your own community when you stand as a councillor, ward councillor. How you attribute that success to you?
I think you probably have to ask the people who live in my ward.
Yeah.
But I think it's really important to be approachable for all who live in the city, actually, but especially from those people who elect you. You've got to listen. I think that's really important. When someone comes to you, they tend to have a problem that they want solving.
Absolutely.
So you have to spend the time to listen and understand their concerns, and then spend a lot of time actually dealing with how to solve those concerns. Now, some of those things are big things. You know, we had an issue in my ward where Tamaki Drive was flooding well before the 2023 floods,
Yeah.
a lot. And my community said it's wrong that we should have such a vital link to the city that floods all the time. Please, what can you do about, fixing that flooding? And I worked really hard over a number of years to raise Tamaki Drive up to 1/2 metre and prevent the flooding. So when we did have the 2023 floods, Tamaki Drive was always open and always accessible. So it's big projects like that, through to little ones. I had a recent example where this year actually, where the parents of a secondary school in my ward were concerned that the school bus was too overcrowded and the children couldn't fit on the school bus, and what could I do about getting another bus service, because we know how important public transport is.
Absolutely.
And it saves congestion if we can get students on public transport. And so I was able to go and advocate to Auckland Transport and get them another bus and more capacity. So it's very rewarding finding the solutions, but sometimes they are relatively quick and sometimes they take a long time. But to be a servant of the people is really important. It's not about me. It's about the people you serve.
Couldn't agree more. You're listening to the community and taking action is rather more important. Great to hear that from you, Desley. We all know Auckland's population is rising day by day. People are more on roads. Traffic are choking. Sometimes we even hear that it's all because of immigrants. However, as a deputy mayor of Auckland, what's your comment, or what we can get, what update we can get from you, Desley?
Well, you're quite right. Out of the 16 regions throughout the country, Auckland is the fastest growing. I think it grew by about 2.5% last year, which is over 40,000 people.
Oh,
So with growth, of course, comes accessibility, and public transport, and transport is a big part of that. So as a city, we're doing a lot of investment. We'll start with, you mentioned CRL, so I'll start with the Central Rail Link.
Link, yeah.
And I think, that's a project that's been happening for some time. It's probably the most expensive 3.5 kilometre stretch ever, because it's well below the ground, but it will make a huge difference to rail patronage and usage in our city, be more frequent, more reliable, and more connected when we have this ability to get between the different lines in Auckland and keep them moving. At the moment, a train goes into Britomart and stops and has to reverse back. This will actually mean that the trains can move around a lot more frequently.
Yeah.
Way out in the south, we've just electrified Papakura to Pukekohe, and that means that more people can get on the train from further out and come all the way into the city
City.
in one go. So rail is one part of the problem and the solution.
Yeah.
But also we're doing a lot of investment for our buses. You know, we have, if you live on the North Shore, the bus investment there to come across the bridge into the city and back again is probably one of the most successful bus routes. It takes a huge amount of people.
Awesome.
We're doing a lot of investment in the West with regards to the West bus links and the Northwest bus links. But also the big project that we're working on with central government in the bus space is the Eastern Busway project, which is 5 kilometres, 5 new bus stations, and will connect Panmure to Botany as a separate bus link network. And that's really important. And on top of that, a whole lot of walking and cycling, which leads us to, of course, walking and cycling. I mean, there are the opportunities for people who like to cycle, who like to walk, to have connections there. And one of the biggest walking cycling routes, I think, is in my own ward, GI to Tamaki Drive. The government is investing in that for that last section. So we're about to start that. And then we've got the ferry network. You know, we've got a wonderful city that is surrounded by water. So it's important that we use our ferries effectively, because the more people we can put on our ferries and our buses takes us to, of course, the roading network. So it's really our intention to help do something about the congestion on our roads. So the more that we can push people onto public transport, the better that is. But there are some people that have to use the roads, you know, our plumbers, our electricians, just to move around. So the investment with central government in our roading network, potentially a congestion charge, you know, fast tracking our lights better so they're smarter, they can sense where there are queues. There's a lot of investment going in transport in Auckland.
Oh, very glad to hear that. It's a real relief for people like us. And I'm glad to hear that the improvements are happening across Auckland, like you're mentioning about West, North, and Eastern projects. I live in Howick side, the Eastern project, so I'm so happy to hear that it's going to be
Oh, you'll love it when it opens. It's going to make a big difference, because the only way really in from that part of town is on road. So
great.
It'll make a big difference.
And when is CRL going to be commissioned? Next year?
We're saying 2026. We're not saying exactly when in 2026. But we have had the first trains, test trains, operating already below the ground. And they started off quite slowly. They're getting faster and faster to test the network. And we're pretty confident, hopefully, that we'll be able to open this next year.
Oh, another point which I would like to touch upon is about the water management. Obviously, it can be a challenge because of the sustainability and the demand, and also about the stormwater space. I would like to know how Auckland Council is addressing the water care management through water care or through this stormwater investments.
Well, let's start with water care, because water care deal with both our drinking water and our wastewater. And I've spoken to you how our population is growing, so it's really important to keep on top of supply for our water and, of course, being able to cope with our waste. So let's start with supply. We're one of the few cities in the country that meters for water, which means that we charge people for what comes out of the tap. Or water care do, right? And so we've been very good at that. I mean, Aucklanders have learnt very well how to be quite conservative with their water use. And I think we've seen that over the last summer. We're like 900 million litres less in usage over the last summer than the one before. So I think if you're paying for something, you're very conscious that you don't leave the tap drip on or the hose running, and that's wonderful. We're all very aware that we've had a wonderful summer, and out there the day is sunny and shining and it's still warm. We were thinking it was going to rain in April, and it doesn't look as if it will. So our conscious watch on water is beginning to tip on that spectrum of just be really careful. It's not dangerous at the moment, but we are very conscious that the rain isn't due for a while yet. So we are asking Aucklanders to, even though they are already very careful and cautious, to just watch those 4-minute showers, watch when you water your garden, if you could do it at night and morning, not during in the heat of the day, and just be a little bit conscious of water coming up. As I said, we're not into the danger period at the moment. So there's one is supply, but the next thing, with a greater population, there's more flushing of the toilet. So we've got to worry about the wastewater as well. And a lot of Auckland, especially in the central city, in the old suburbs, have very old pipes. So the big investment we're doing here is the Central Interceptor. Now, this is a mammoth pipe that goes from the Western Isthmus out to Mangere. And they say it's, as high as a giraffe. I don't know that they've ever taken a giraffe down there, but they say it's as high as a giraffe and as wide as 2 rhinoceroses. So that'll give you an idea of how huge this pipe is below the ground. And it will take a huge amount of overflow from other smaller, older pipes in Auckland so that wastewater can go and be treated out at Mangere. So that's a huge investment. It's the biggest infrastructure investment, I think, for wastewater in the country as well. So that's a big piece of work, and that should be finished quite soon. I go out often to Mangere and have a look at how they're progressing, and it's really exciting, actually. What as exciting as wastewater can be.
Yeah.
And then the third bit of the puzzle, you've got drinking water, you've got wastewater, but then you've got stormwater. So where does water go when it falls from the sky, runs over the road? Where does it actually go, and how do we make sure we don't get flooding and stuff like that? And of course, the floods in 2023 were made us very consciously aware of that. So we have quite an investment in our stormwater, and that's council's role. It's not Watercare's role. It is
Council's
our role.
Yeah.
And we've got a big program of work called Making Space for Water. Pretty obvious name, really. But it just makes sure that we are protecting our stormwater overflows with a lot of green infrastructure to stop that the contaminants from the road and stuff going into the harbours, and also filling our pipe network so they don't overflow and go into our harbours. So the importance of keeping our water as pure that goes into the harbour as much as possible is really a focus for us.
Oh, that's really impressive to hear what actions council is taking as far as water care is concerned. As most of our listeners are immigrants, I would like to touch upon that topic where cost of living is always a concern for immigrants like us, especially when it comes to housing. So one of the challenges immigrants face is buying a house or owning a house once we are here. Once it's done, the associated cost comes in as council rates and so on and so forth. Being said that, we believe or we understand that that cost is feeding into as an income for the council to take care of all our essential services like parks or public transport, so on. What strategies you take to balance the cost and income to manage your projects?
Well, that is a major part of the work that we do in our budget every year. I think the first thing is to prove to Auckland that we are trying to get as much income as we can from sources other than the ratepayer. All right.
Yeah.
So if we look at what they are, I think one of our biggest income earners is the Port of Auckland.
Oh.
And, they have just posted a dividend that was $10 million greater than what was expected. They are owned 100% by us, but not managed by us. The chair of Port of Auckland won the chair of the year in the Deloitte Top 200. The chief executive of Port of Auckland was a finalist as chief executive. But they have really done a very good job of upping their financial performance, which brings us an income from them.
Yeah.
Another part to that story was, of course, the shares we had in Auckland International Airport Limited. And what we did is we sold those shares, and that $1.3 billion we invested into a future fund or a wealth fund that is being managed now that will give us a higher level of return from that money than what it would be if we just left it into one share portfolio, okay?
Yeah.
So that's just good financial management. And then, of course, we look, we have other fees and charges, but then we look at the savings we can make before we go to the ratepayer too. And it's important to be really clear that savings is an important part of any budget. We have to prove to Aucklanders that we will do as much as we can to save money. Last term, I was chair of the finance committee, and we saved about $500 million over that 3-year term. This year, we have also got high savings targets. Our long-term plan baked in $90 million worth of savings every year. And this year we added $66 million on top of that $90 million. So it's over $150 million of savings. And at the end of December, which is the second quarter, we were 2/3 of the way towards that saving target. Now, I chair that committee, and I can give your listeners absolute assurance
Yeah.
that we will make the savings targets this
Great,
year.
great.
Absolutely. So it's very important, as I said, to show that we're getting as much income from other sources as we can, save money ourselves, and then, of course, you go to the ratepayers. Now, our income from rates is less than 40% of our income. Nearly always has been. So they're not our major funder. Ratepayers are not our major funder. And no council wants to put a high level of rates on their ratepayers. You know, it's not just immigrants, it's everyone who lives in the city that is concerned about a cost of living issues. Things are tight, you know, so we're very conscious of the rates setting and the impact that will have on homeowners. So this year we're talking about our annual budget. Our rates increase is proposed to be 5.8%. Now, that is one of the lowest in the country, but it's still a lot of money. What does that mean in dollar terms? I think is really important. So if your home is worth $1.4 million, just over, which is what the average home is worth in Auckland. Obviously, we have homes worth a lot more and homes that are worth less.
Lower, yeah.
But if you are the average, that would be an extra $223 more than the current rates you are paying now. So that's the increase it would be. All right. And that also includes the increase to the water quality targeted rate and the natural environment targeted rate. And those are two targeted rates, which are types of funding to improve water quality in the region and to improve our wonderful natural environment, looking after pest eradication and looking after things like kauri dieback for our trees and things like that. The major point I wanted to make is that we try very hard to balance our income and expenditure and the impact on ratepayers as well as we can, and not make the burden too onerous on the ratepayer.
Yeah, great. Listening to you, Desley, I was thinking your job includes a lot of challenges to balance between the financial effectiveness plus delivering what you need to deliver to your taxpayers. From that, I'm thinking you will be really good in navigating the council bureaucracy and the committee processes. How you foster your relationship to drive these kind of decisions?
Well, I mean, you're quite right. So the first thing is to get to know the staff really well, because whatever you want to do, they are responsible for delivering that. And actually, as the governing body, that is the mayor and the councillors, we only employ one person, which is our chief executive. And every other staff member reports to the chief executive. So it's really important to have a good relationship with the chief executive, but it's just as important to have a good relationship with the other staff members. So if you have an issue that you're passionate about, some change that you want, the ability for that department to be more efficient or work more effectively, to be able to have that relationship with those people that you can go and sit down and say, look, this is what we want to do. How can we work together to deliver better value for money? How can we work together to deliver the same program but more cheaply, more effectively? Let's talk about the options and work it through with them. And I think that's really important. I mean, I had a couple of challenges in Waiuku when really it was as a result of my relationship with the managers in control. We've sort of said, look, there are the rules, but this is the reality. Can we work together and make this work? And the other thing is, of course, the political interaction, because you know, the mayor can have all kinds of ideas. Other councillors can all have all kind of ideas, but you can't necessarily make that happen without 11 votes, half the table. And so that is about ensuring that your ideas, people understand what you want to do, that they buy into that, and they're not too politicised. So it actually is always about focusing on what's best for Auckland as a whole. And everybody who sits around that table, they all come from a different part of Auckland and they're saying, well, hold on, how does that benefit my area or whatever? But really, when you sit in the town hall, you should be looking about all of Auckland, and the ability to persuade with facts to show how the decision will benefit the people of Auckland is key.
Yeah. Focusing more on the best outcome, listening to everyone's points on what is not exclusive for one person's benefit or one area's benefit. It should be a collective beneficial outcome. That's a great point to learn from you, Desley. And Auckland has got a wide range of ethnicities. Maybe my stats may be wrong. I think around 250 plus ethnicities across Auckland. And for that reason, all ethnicities have different kind of cultural events. If we talk about Kerala, the southern tip of India, our language is Malayalam. And we celebrate Onam, which is a festival of harmony and unity, something you can relate to Diwali. Have you ever come across Onam celebrations from the Kerala community?
I don't think I've actually been to one of the celebrations. I haven't been invited. Who knows? I might this year now.
Okay, we will definitely invite you next year.
I do know a bit about it, and I think what's really great about that particular celebration, cultural celebration, is it's for all religions.
Yeah.
And I love the flower carpets and the vegetarian food and banana leaves, the tiger dance, the snake boat races, and the mask dance. I mean, that makes it really, really special. Auckland is incredibly culturally diverse. And that's what makes us special. We're more diverse than London or LA. And I think, that diversity is... I've said it makes Auckland so special, and I just want to make sure that every culture who lives here actually gets to continue to experience those festivals and things because they're important to people.
Absolutely.
And that's what makes us great. And I would just encourage those celebrations to continue. We do the big ones, as you've mentioned, Diwali, Pacifica, Lantern Festival. We do invest in some very large festivals, but local boards also invest in some of the smaller ones too. And, I think that when there are pockets of communities that live in local board areas, that they should approach their politicians and see if there can be some assistance and contribution towards celebrating those festivals because they're just wonderful.
Wonderful. You shared your strategies, your vision for Auckland Council and for us as taxpayers. What is your advice if you want to give us a one-line advice to aspiring community leaders? What we should be focusing on, what we can contribute, what way we can contribute to the growth of the council?
Well, I think every Aucklander can contribute, and I think it's important to have your say when you're asked. So, for example, one of the things that we're in the middle of right now is asking Aucklanders what do they think about the budget, and part of that budget is what do they think about events. So that's really important. But if you want to aspire to be a community leader, do get to know your politicians, do get to know your local board members, talk to them, tell them about the things that you want to see happening in your community, in your city, and never give up. Sometimes it won't happen overnight. The first time you ask somebody, they mightn't be so open. Well, ask the next person and the next person. Make connections with other people, not just from your own culture, but for other cultures. And work together because we are stronger if we all put our hands up and represent those in our communities and make a difference for our great city.
That's a valuable advice which we all can look forward and try working on that. Desley, do you think our community, not only the Kerala community, all ethnic communities, we are all really contributing to the growth of the council? Or how can we improve our association and our involvement in the council activities?
We do have an ethnic advisory group that is appointed every 3 years, and they work with us to try and disseminate information out to the very many number of ethnic communities. So that's one way. But I suppose I'll ask that question back to you. And that is, we do try and have a lot of our material, a lot of our questions that we ask Aucklanders, for example, our annual plan at the moment, in many different languages to ensure that our message is getting out there. So I suppose my question back to you, though, is do you feel that your community know what's going on in council, and how can we do that better? And I'd be really interested to hear from your listeners as to how we can do that, because communication is absolutely important. A lot of people sit in their homes and they're worried about public transport, or they're worried about other things in Auckland. They're worried about all sorts of things that
maybe healthcare.
Yeah, healthcare.
Yeah.
Although that's not something that we do terribly much. But But what can we do to help you? And it takes me right back to the very question that you asked me at the beginning. What made you an effective elected member? And that is to listen. But to listen, you have to hear that voice.
Nice.
And to hear that voice has to put their hand up and say, please, can you help? And so I go back to that, be aware of who your elected members are in your community. Talk to them. And if you feel they're not right, well, we have an election coming up. Either put your hand up yourself to be part of a local board, to maybe be a councillor or to have a voice, or to make sure someone that you feel that you can talk to and it does deliver for you, maybe make sure that that person is on the list too. And then vote. We do have incredibly low voting turnout in the city. And all communities are important to us, and it's important that all communities have a say. And you can't vote for someone unless you know who they are.
Yeah.
So it's a two-way street. It's about communication. It's about knowing who those people are. Are they available? Will they talk to you? Will they meet with you? Will they make themselves available to listen to your concerns? And if they do, that's the sort of person you want representing you.
That's a great takeaway from you, Desley. Be open, be the change you would like to be, instead of saying nothing will happen if I am the only one person is going to, get up and share my views. It's not like that. The council is open. Share our views, share our concerns to you. Then you can listen and then think about, as you said, it may not be overnight. It can be a long-term plan, but good to share our views, our thoughts, our concerns with you. Thank you so much for your spending your time with Malayalam FM listeners. It was great listening to you about your strategies, your plan, your vision. You have got a clear vision for Auckland Council. In case of public transport, or it is about the housing rates, housing council rates, you have a plan, you have a strategy that gives us a lot of confidence to be in Auckland, to be a New Zealander. Thank you so much for having with us.
Thank you for inviting me. We live in the best city in the world, and we just want to make it even better. So thank you for living here. Thank you for being part of our community, and let us know at any time if we can help.
Thank you.